Welcome into the podcast. This is going to be a really interesting one, guys and gals. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I know it's not a fun time right now to be a Rocket fan. Things are just crashing. Rockets lose tonight 111-98. It's the teams against the team has the worst record in the league in the West, excuse me, 8-30. They're missing Dennis Schröder. They're missing Keegan Murray. And Rockets just get rolled in the fourth quarter. And Ben, I'm here with Ben DuBose. Ben, we're going to talk about this game. Like I said, 111-98 was the final score. Alperen Sengun does return after a 4-game absence, technically 3, but played 1 minute in that first game. The problems right now with this team just run deep. They shot again tonight. I believe it was 23.3% from 3, and that's with the KD 3 in garbage time at the very end. They cannot throw it in the ocean right now.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the sunny side up view. The Rockets sacrificed themselves for the Texans to win a playoff game. That's the obvious takeaway here.
I'll live with that. I'll live with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I can come up with. I try and be as optimistic as I reasonably can, but this is something deeper than just one or two guys slumping. You look at the bottom 7 teams in the Western Conference standings from 9 all the way down to 15. Portland, you just lost to them twice last week. The Grizzlies, you have not lost to them, thankfully. The Clippers, you lost to them before Thanksgiving. The Mavs, you lost to them twice. The Jazz, you lost to them. The Kings, you lost to them twice. Oh, and the last place, the New Orleans Pelicans, who you blew a 25-point second half lead against and lost in December. I mean, this is not a one-off. And what I keep going back to, Dave, this is since December 1st, a 9-10 team. This is almost a quarter of your season that you're below 500. And the issues are across the board. In December, it was the defense that struggled. In these early January games, it's been the offense, notably the shooting. So this is deeper than, it would be easy to say Alperen Sengun went out with an ill-timed ankle injury, and that's why things went south. Not really. They're now 11 in their last 11 games with Alperen Sengun. They're 5-6. So it's not his fault. It's not
Of
any
course not.
one
No.
player's fault. It's, the recent games, it's been the shooting slumps from Jabari Smith Jr. and Reed Sheppard. But you just have to go back to the start of December and the way that it's happening on both sides of the ball from one week to the next. It's a different issue. And I go back to what Ime said post game after the second Blazers lost. It's a mentally weak team, and that's what stands out when you have different types of issues, and it just feels like a spiraling effect. When in this game the Rockets had fought back, they got down 2, and Shingun missed those 2 free throws, and it felt like as soon as he missed those 2 free throws with a chance to tie, the air was out of the balloon. And it feels like that's a metaphor for what's happened to the Rockets really since the calendar turned to December. Like, how many times have we talked about the Rockets blowing huge leads? I mentioned that loss in New Orleans. They had the 2 fourth quarter leads they blew against bad teams in Sacramento and Portland, yet they haven't really had any comebacks. The closest thing they've had to a comeback would be that Phoenix game last week when, I mean, the only time they were down double digits was very early in the second half to a Phoenix team on night 2 of a back-to-back. It's like they blow leads when they have them. That's a team that sort of takes its foot off the gas. Yet when they fall behind by a decent amount, they don't seem to have that dog in them. They sort of fade into the night, sort of shrug their shoulders. And we saw that a little bit in the fourth quarter tonight. I don't know what to tell you. To me, this is going to be one of Ime Udoka's, perhaps his biggest challenge since taking over as Rockets head coach, because the last 2 years were almost like playing with house money, and that expectations were low. It was clear they were ahead of schedule. You had 2 in Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, you had 2 on-court extensions of the coaching staff. Now you don't have those guys. You do have a couple of veterans, but I don't think KD and Steven Adams are quite as demonstrative with regards to their leadership as Fred and Dylan were. And you also don't have a point guard. So this is going to be a big challenge for Ime Udoka to get this team bought in. I mean, if you want to be optimistic, they're now 11-12 on the road. They are 11-2 at home. They have a 5-game homestand coming up. Maybe that will help, but I don't necessarily buy into the idea that they're super fatigue. They haven't had a back-to-back since before Christmas. So I know they've been on the road, but they haven't had back-to-backs in a while. I mean, it's just a team that just mentally seems out of sorts, disjointed, and I think it's going to
Yeah.
be Ime Udoka's biggest challenge to date.
Yeah, we'll talk about Jabari for sure because we did not go Friday night. It was all along, well in advance. There was no plans to go on Friday night, and that was a really bad game as well. Portland, Jabari certainly was the problem in that game. I don't think tonight can be dismissed as just Jabari. Jabari in the last 5 games has been really rough. He had the one game in Phoenix, at home against Phoenix, where he had a really good second half, a really rough first half. Other than that, the 2 games on both sides, sandwiching that, or 3 on this side, one on the front side, have been really rough. And for me, I did talk a lot about this, vented about Jabari after the first Portland game, and Jeff Balke and I were talking about it. He's got to hit shots, and right now he's in a deep, deep funk. But this is something as well. Jabari's the main culprit. I want to be clear. I'm not excusing Jabari in any way. It is across the board. This team can suddenly not shoot, which was a team that was for most of the year in the top 3 or 4 in 3-point efficiency. As a matter of fact, they were number 1 for a long stretch. They are 22, 23, 24% from 3 in each of the last 5 games, and they're open shots. And tonight, we had this debate in the chat, on the live streams. Well, it's because Sengun's out. Look, I'm not taking anything away from Sengun. Sengun's fine. It's just that the stats show that they were getting open looks and very open looks in those previous 4 games. And tonight, Sengun's back. It doesn't matter. The team is still misfiring. So I want to lean on the fatigue excuse, which is what you were talking about. I'm not making any excuses for it, but something's wrong. And, just one last thing on Jabari. He's had this. I touched on it after the first Portland game. Certainly had it as a rookie, certainly had it in his second year, where these stretches where it literally feels like he can't shoot. Like he's just forgotten, like mentally shaken. And like you said, Ime talked about after that second Portland game, I think he used the word mentally weak, and I can't remember the other term, but something like that.
You mentioned lacking aggression and lacking confidence, and
lacking confidence.
He said it in the context of the team, but I think it was pretty clear he was referring to Jabari specifically as well.
Yes, and then I believe in the Athletic or the Houston Chronicle, there was a quote where he did talk specifically about Jabari, and he said he could see it in his face. Yeah. And so, do I have concerns about Jabari Smith long term? Yeah, a little, but I don't overlook or forget that he was really good, in my opinion, up to the last, before the last 5 games. He's going to have to figure out how to get his confidence back, because right now it's shaken. He can't shoot. He's 1 for 20 from 3 in the last 3 games. And so that's something that has to be addressed. And yeah, like I said, the Portland game, both those Portland games, I think you can, chalk it up to Jabari a lot. He deserves a lot of that blame, if not all of it. But it's not the case. It's not what's been the problem for the last 10, 15 games. It's not the problem specifically tonight. He's just part of the problem.
Yeah, and one of the things that bugged me about the reaction after the Portland game, there were so many fans saying, "Oh, just take him out," and my reaction was, "Who for?" I mean,
Tari down.
He didn't deserve to close that game the way he was playing 0 for 8 in the fourth quarter, but who are you going to put in? Tari and Sengun were hurt. Dorian Finney-Smith was at his minutes cap, and he still looks pretty limited physically coming off the ankle. Jae'Sean Tate and Jeff Green hadn't even played to that point. Josh Okogie is very hit or miss. Aaron Holiday is supposed to be your shooter. That's why they started him tonight, to sort of bump that 3-point shooting, which has been the liability this month. And Aaron's even slumping. One thing people aren't talking about enough, Reed Sheppard, the defense has been an issue at times all season long, but his last, I think, 11 games, he's shooting about 40% overall and 30% from 3. So he's slumping as well. And none of this is meant to give Jabari a pass, because, I mean, at the start of this year, when the calendar flipped to 26, he was having a career year offensively in terms of scoring and shooting, and that's all fallen off the map since. And it's been really awful from him. But at the same time, Ime Udoka is sort of operating with 2 hands tied behind his back, because there's not really a clear alternative, especially now that Tari's hurt again. And, it's not his fault. It's a freak play where he rolled his ankle, but he's unavailable game to game. We'll see if he's available Tuesday against the Bulls, but it'd be so simple if it was just 1 or 2 players, and then you could turn to someone else. I guess if you want to look for any silver lining, I like the fact that Shingun played tonight. That shows, some level of buy-in. We talk about the lack of mental focus. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're checked out. I think Shingun fighting his way back from an injury that they initially said was going to be probably 2 weeks or so, and coming back in 8 days is a positive sign that these guys are still fighting. These guys are still trying, but I just think up and down the roster, you know, there's just a level of doubt that I think these players are struggling with. Not just one or two, basically
Hmm.
the entire roster outside of Kevin Durant and Amen Thompson had a big statistical game tonight, and we should note that ever since December 1st, he's been averaging now over like 20 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists per game. So he's been really good from an efficiency perspective. But then in crunch time tonight, Amen had a couple of killer turnovers that led
Yeah,
to the
he did.
Kings breaking
He
that
really
open.
did.
So it just feels like up and down the roster, it manifests in different ways, but there's just a level of doubt that, again, I just keep coming back to. It's going to challenge Ime Udoka in a way that he hasn't been challenged in the past.
I agree, because expectations, last year they exceeded them. This year they're high. And now you're, I think, a game behind the pace of last year's
And
team.
you're a game behind the Phoenix Suns, by the way. If the season ended today, the Rockets would be in the play-in tournament.
Is that right? I was
Yeah.
thinking that okay. Yeah, that's
Hat
brutal.
tip to Adam Spillane, who just pointed that.
Okay. I got to say one other thing specifically about this game. We can talk about, leading up. Let me talk a little about big picture and then lead into this game. We talked about this 2-3 weeks ago. Defense was a pretty big issue. That's one of the problems why they were losing. The defense was slipping. And then, the last 5 games, it's been 3-point shooting. Tonight, they got crushed on the glass. Actually, crushed is not a good term. They got beat on the glass, which by Rocket standards is crushed. If the Rockets lose the rebounding battle, there goes the superpower. And tonight, the Kings got 90 shots up to the Rockets 84. And I was stunned. It was all the second half, too, because the Rockets had a 6 rebound advantage at halftime. The rookie centers, Cardwell and Reynaud, really dominated. They didn't dominate like 30, 15, and 10 or something like in a game. I'm just saying they feasted and kind of had their way. And so that was a big problem as well. But I was very surprised that the worst team in the West, crushed the Rockets on the boards today.
Yeah, I was too. And the Rockets went double big for extended stretches of this game to try and address it, and it still didn't work. I mean, we should point out that both Sengun and Adams are coming off of ankle sprains, so maybe they don't have the juice that they typically do. But I mean, the Rockets were playing with jumbo lineups in the fourth quarter of this game, and they were still getting beaten on the glass. So I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's there's certainly a level of fatigue, at least from the injuries that I think are piling up. Shingun, Adams, no Tari tonight, and so maybe that contributes. But again, they're going to have a lot of back-to-backs starting Thursday and Friday of this week against the Thunder and the Timberwolves. So that's what I keep going back to. Like, what are you, if you're struggling like this right now? I mean, I guess you can hope that playing at home makes things magically better. To this point, it has. They're 11-2, but how is it? How is it going to get that much better? I mean,
Yeah.
it just feels like you're in one of those stretches.
Yeah, this is kind of uncharted territory, I think, right now for Ime to figure out. The Tari thing, that was also frustrating, because Jabari was really struggling and had just one of the worst fourth quarters. Just to tell you as well, that night, I didn't even see the final 3.5, 4 minutes of the game. I saw the fourth when that 13-point lead evaporated. But we had a lightning storm in our area and power went out. So I didn't even, I've never went back and watched it either because I got the play-by-play. But just an absolutely nightmarish fourth quarter against Portland, and then really brutal fourth tonight as well. I don't want to say Ime has lost the team, but he's going to have to figure this out, certainly. But as far as Tari's concerned, what I was getting at was he gets injured there in that second half. He's not available. So you've got to play Jabari, even though he's really struggling. This is just a consistent problem with Tari. All of these things are flukish. All these different injuries aren't necessarily tied together other than the I guess, thigh issue or leg issue he has. But he is just constantly dealing with injuries. And that's going to be something I think you're going to have to look at when you're talking about restricted free agency this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, And I think it's going to be something that affects his value around the league, even if this particular injury, just rolling an ankle is pretty fluky. Look, if he goes into free agency with 3 straight years of, let's say, 60 or fewer games, and he's not there yet, but the margin is slipping. I mean, even if he shoots threes and continues to at the clip he is now, which is among the best in the NBA, nearly 47%. I mean, there's going to be an asterisk in terms of how does it extrapolate to a full sample. Have people aren't going to have seen enough from him to feel confident in that, unless maybe they go on a deep playoff run. But my God, that feels a long way away right now.
Yeah, oh, for sure. KD tonight, 9 of 18, 4 of 9 from three. Take out his threes. The rest of the team's 3 for 21. Sengun hit one of those. This is the first Sengun three-pointer, I believe, since December 1st. He had been in a 1 for 20 slump. I guess it's 2 for 25 now. But at least he shot him tonight. I'm not going to, it is a small silver lining, but he's back to, being comfortable shooting them. Amen Thompson, other than those turnovers, which were brutal in the fourth quarter, still ended up with 31 points, 13 boards, 6 assists. I did like, if I'm going to try to find something positive, the downhill force that he played with. Like, he was consistently attacking the basket. Had that one highlight dunk that I posted on Twitter, but the turnovers are a dagger. Really, the Rockets only had 10 turnovers tonight, and they only forced 9 by Sacramento. I almost said Portland, but those turnovers in that crunch time definitely hurt.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the toughest games I've seen in a while, specifically because coming into this game, when you enter off of 2 of the most brutal losses in a row, one at the buzzer and then one when you have a 13-point lead and let it slip away in the fourth quarter. I mean, this game, you would expect going in there to be a higher level of focus. And then especially if you get to the fourth quarter, you would like to think that there are counters. And there wasn't the level of focus going in. And the fourth quarter, I mean, it was worse than the other night, at least when it got to true crunch time. As soon as the Rockets got to within a couple of points, I mean, it spiraled in a hurry. And I just think it looks to me like this is a team that is expecting things to go wrong. And when that's your body language, like there was a play, I think after one of those turnovers where a man punched the stanchion in live play. And I think he did get back after that, but I mean, even if that's just a second, that's a second that you're not getting back in transition to, just demonstratively let out your frustration. That's how frustrated they are right now. And so, yeah, I wish I knew what to tell you. I think
I know, it's like it's kind of like it leaves you speechless, because like I really don't know what the solution is. How do you go from this team that looked so strong, potentially elite, to this bad? Yeah, I mean, Portland actually has played really well lately. It's not an excuse for the losses, but they've been really good. Sacramento hasn't. So I don't know how to explain this. They're just in a deep funk. They almost lost at home to Phoenix if it wasn't for that KD. Well, not they would have gone to overtime, but KD hits that buzzer beater. They were slumping in that game too. So it's hard to explain really what's going on. There's just feels like there's some sort of outside factor.
yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, the absence of Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, it's not just the X's and O's. Like we've talked about it a lot this year from the standpoint of Fred organizing the offense, Dylan, what he does as a two-way player. But I think they did more for the connectivity of the group than I think any of us realized at the time. I think that's what we're seeing right now. They just don't seem to have that ability on the fly to regather themselves. That's what sticks out the most. Like when this team starts playing well, I mean, they can make you think that they're the pre-December bunch when they were 13-4, one of the best net ratings that you'll ever see. Um, but as soon as it goes wrong, the body language is bad. One thing spirals into another, and I just think it's becoming clear that there's something from an intangible perspective. And the easy thing to do would be to blame the coaching staff, and I'm not going to say that Ime doesn't have blame. I'm guessing he'd be the first to admit it. But I also think compared to the last couple of years, there's not quite that extension of the coaching staff on the floor the way they had on offense and on defense, to be frank, with the way those two communicated and the way they helped organize the players around them. So I just think there's sort of an identity crisis right now.
Yeah.
What's really frustrating is that, besides the issues with confidence, aggression, mentality, they can't even go a few games with the same strength. You know, they they've been top 5 for stretches in offense and defense, and I think they're still close in overall net rating, but I mean, December it was the defense that slipped. January it's been the shooting, the offense. There's just no foundation for this team right
It's
now,
true.
and it's tough to see where a sustained turnaround comes from when the floor is that low.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I just noticed Carwell. I didn't even look at the stats, but Reno and Carwell both had 10 boards. Reno had 4 offensive. Carwell had 8. 8 of his 10 rebounds were on the offensive glass. That's a killer because the Rockets usually just dominate offensively, or excuse me, they dominate the offensive glass, and they matched the Rockets with 19 apiece. Amen had 6. Sengun did have 4 offensive rebounds, 4 of his 9. Um, let's talk real quick about Sengun's game back. Not his best game, certainly, but did take 20 shots, 8 of 20 from the field, 19 points, 9 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals. Did have a few moments where Reno really got the better of him, but it's his first game back. He's going to be a little bit rusty. Obviously, it would have helped if the Rockets could have hit some threes around him. But I don't know what you thought of Sengun being his first game back. Rockets will play Chicago next. He should be obviously good and worked his way back into it. But your thoughts overall on Sengun?
I mean, I like as mentioned earlier, the heart that he played with to get out there early, but I did think it was clear that, he didn't finish particularly well around the rim. It didn't feel like he's as springy as he typically is. Defensively, I'm guessing that played a role in the rebounding issues they had despite the size. I'm not going to sit here and say it's some sort of shameful effort when he's playing a week after what was described as a 2-week injury. Like,
Sure.
to some extent, he deserves credit for gutting it out and trying to give them. I think as much as anything, it was attempting to give his team like a shot in the arm, so to speak. But I just think he wasn't himself. That's probably
Yeah.
to be expected. Certainly not his fault, the reason that they're losing, but I just don't think he's physically in a state right now to where he's going to, single handedly lift them to something different than really what they've been for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, another good representation. Sengun 2 of 6 at the free throw line. Jabari 1 of 3 at the free throw line. And
Yeah.
I think they're trying to get Jabari going. Not to go back to this topic, but KD had a KD shoots those techs, and they got a technical free throw handed. He gave it to Jabari. I think he did this. This is 2 straight games now. I believe he did it in the second Portland game as well. Jabari missed the free throw. Like I said, I'm hoping they can find something and this just changes on a dime. But I mean, Aaron Holiday starts tonight. No Reed Sheppard. Reed Sheppard played just 14 and a half minutes. Again, the trust factor with Reed is probably down a little bit. I saw some tweets about some people saying this was one of his worst games. I don't know. He was 2 of 4 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3. I need to go back and analyze the Reed. I didn't necessarily notice that specifically. But Holiday starts tonight specifically to get some shooting going, and he's 1 of 7 from 3 as well. So it's a team-wide issue right now. They just can't hit threes, and it's 5 straight games from a team that was shooting, almost 40% from 3 up to that point. So it's very, very hard to explain. But
I will say,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I do wonder if this happening less than a month until the trade deadline potentially gives Rafael Stone more to think about. When this team was playing relatively well, we had talked about this not being the time for them to be super aggressive because they're set up well, not just for now, but into the future. But, you know, KD wasn't at his best tonight, but by and large, the last few weeks, he's been phenomenal.
Hmm.
And yet, as mentioned, you're 9-10 in your last 19 games going back to the start of December. So you have KD in this form and you have so many liabilities. We've talked a lot about the struggles of Jabari and Reed in recent games, but further down the bench, like there's so many one-dimensional players. Dorian Finney-Smith, who's limited right now, Clint Capella, Josh Okogie, Jay Sean Tate, and Jeff Green, who typically don't play. Like there's a lot of it's certainly not blaming any of these guys, but I bring them up to say, if you're going to pull Jabari or Reed and say, this is just unacceptable, we can't trust you anymore, we've got to make a change. I mean, how are you going to fill out a rotation that, at least in the regular season, you need at least 9 bodies with what the Rockets have right now? Like, that's part of why the leash, I think, is a little bit longer than some fans would like, because
Mhm.
who are the alternatives, especially with Tari hurt again at the moment. So I do wonder if, if this continues, and clearly, like, there's guys starting with Jabari this month that are playing at a substandard level. Do you have to look externally for some sort of solution? Because I do think right now, like, part of the problem is, at least if you're trying to win at the highest level, to be the contender that this team viewed itself as going into the season, I mean, where are you going to get that if you bench some of these guys? I don't think it's realistic to turn to, we saw them try and start Aaron Holiday tonight. Didn't go very well. I think the same would probably happen if you went back to Josh Okogie, or you tried Jayshawn Tate. So I do wonder if, with Kevin Durant at 37, and you can tell he's getting a little more frustrated, um, does this maybe move the needle for Rafael Stone to,
Hmm.
I don't think they're going to, like, mortgage all their assets, but, maybe make them think a little more aggressively going into the trade deadline, because I do think that's
Yeah.
part of the problem. The options at the end of this bench, like, they're not great.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a matter of what are the Rockets. It's the I guess the question we've been asking all year. Are they a win now team, or are they building for the future? I think they're doing both. But you have, at 37 years old, in Kevin Durant, a guy who's playing, close to the peak of his powers, or he's
Yep.
certainly amazing. Can you blow that season, by not giving him the very best chance? It's the same question Golden State asked about Steph Curry. Like, you have a truly special player here in Kevin Durant. What do you do? Amen and Sengun are growing into star roles, or trying to, or whatever you want to call it. But they're 22, 23 years old, however old they are, and you have time. But it's just a balance of, what do you try to do with KD, and what are you trying to build long term? So, yeah, I would love to be a fly on the wall in Rafael Stone's office right now, but I tend to think, somebody mentioned in the chat, Giannis is calling. I tend to think that's what, if this continues, obviously, and it goes into the summer, then they'll look at something bigger. But as far as the trade deadline, I think you and I have kind of been in agreement that I don't know if they can do anything right now. Like, but maybe they do look at it. I just think that that's kind of been their view, is give this team a good shot at it, and then go, make changes in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's assuming they can stabilize a little bit. I still think that's the odds on likely scenario. But I don't know. Like, if this thing spirals and they're 22-14 now, I mean, these losses are starting to mount. You just wrapped up an 0-3 road trip. I don't think this team would tolerate this season sliding into the play-in range, which, quite frankly, it is right now. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's representative. Like, you look at the metrics, and this should not be a 22-14 team, but the same issues keep happening when they get in these close games. So
Yeah.
at some point, you are what your record says you are. And that's why, gun to my head, they have a lot of home games coming up, and you'd think they're due for something to go their way. But if it doesn't, I'm not as convinced as I was a couple of weeks ago that this is going to be a quiet deadline. Like, ideally, they'd
Mm.
wait until the summer, but you're getting to a point now where, if this lasts much longer, you may need to look for something, some sort of stimulus to get this team going.
Yeah. I mean, Denver stayed pretty strong even without Jokic. I don't know when Jokic is coming back. Stronger than I certainly would have anticipated. OKC's going through a little mini slump, but they're 33-7. You still got the Spurs playing well. They lost tonight to Minnesota, who is starting to play much better. West is tough, and for the Rockets to separate themselves, maybe you do have to look at the deadline. Appreciate it, Ben. Anything you want to say before we close? I appreciate everyone listening. I know it's not a great time. There's a lot of negativity because this was really
And
negative and frustrating, but I appreciate everyone hanging
and
with us.
there's comments in the chat, a lot of them saying, it's the coaching. I mean, I tend to give Ime some grace because it's the guy who has clearly outkicked his coverage the first couple of seasons with the Rockets. But I agree with you. This team is less than the sum of its parts is less than the individuals. And to some degree, that reflects the coaching. Now, it's half of one season. We're not even quite to the halfway point yet. And this is a team that lost its veteran point guard on the eve of training camp. So, I don't see a reason to, panic and say this overrides everything that we've seen from, the first 2 seasons when Ime was universally regarded as someone that was, one of the best coaches in the NBA. But as I said leading off, like, this is a challenge. At the moment, he's not getting through. At the moment, he is underachieving relative to the talent that's on his team. So, I see you, I hear you. Those complaints are valid. I hope this turns around. And I think, when you look at who they lost and the timing of who they lost and when they lost them, I mean, I think there are some reasons for it, but yeah, I see the comments and they're deserved. I mean, this
Yeah.
is a team that should be better than it is right now.
Well, they're going to have to figure it out. And if it is fatigue, it's not going to get much easier. It's going to get tougher. There's going to be back-to-backs coming up, and we'll see. Well, this January's pack, full of games. So, Ben, appreciate it, man. Thanks for hanging with us this late. We'll be back. I think it's the Bulls, right? Next game. I think it's at home
Tuesday
against.
night.
Yeah, got to get that one because you're on a slide right now. So, appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we will see you guys then. Thanks, everybody.